I'm going to give a second for people to like log in.
Excellent.
Here we go. Okay, so people are starting to log in now, and welcome everybody to the first session in our 2022 speaker series. I'm very excited to have a bunch of people joining us virtually. I'm going to give everybody a couple more seconds to log in, and then we will be turning it over to Kevin O'Reilly from US PIRG to talk about the right to repair. This is going to be recorded just like all of our speaker series sessions, and then within a week or two, we will have it available for members on the website, so you can go and rewatch this. So just keep that in mind. Our next session for the speaker series is actually on this Thursday, October 6th. It's pretty early in the morning. It's at 7 a.m. East Coast time. Sunil Shetty from Genesis Care will be giving his session on why we are connecting as a community. He'll be coming to us from Australia, hence the early morning session time. And with that, I will turn it over to Kevin to give a brief introduction to himself and the work that US PIRG is doing around the medical right to repair. Kevin, I need to just send you and make you a host. So give us a second here, guys, to do that.
Right on. Well, while she's doing that, hi everybody, my name is Kevin O'Reilly. I'm the Right to Repair Campaign Director with the Public Interest Research Group, or US PIRG. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit public interest advocacy organization that works to advance campaigns to, make our lives better simply, to, try and protect consumers, protect the environment, protect public health and good governance. And right to repair has been one of our priority issues for the past several years. We've kind of been one of the leaders in the right to repair movement here in the States, alongside repair.org and iFixit. And I'm really looking forward to talking more about this. Good to see some friendly names, if not faces, in the attendees list. But let's see, are we all set to go here? Yeah.
Yep. And one other thing I forgot to mention is, as always, you guys, down below in the bar at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button. If you have questions along the way, just enter them into that chat. And then at the very end, we will run through all of the questions and give you guys a chance to, getting any clarifications or additional questions answered by Kevin before the end of the session.
Great. And I might ask y'all to hop into the Q&A function a couple times throughout the presentation, just to interact a little bit here, a little bit about your thoughts of kind of the issue and how it relates to y'all. So this is me. You heard about me. Beardless back in DC not that long ago, but man, it makes me feel old. Anyways, so as I mentioned, right, PIRG, we're a kind of a federation really of state organizations. So we operate in more than 20 states. We're in everywhere from North Carolina with NC PIRG to MoPIRG in Missouri to CalPIRG in California. I myself am based in Boston, Massachusetts. So let's talk a little bit about repair. And one thing I just want to frame as far as this presentation goes is, you don't need me to tell you about the repair restrictions that you face in your work, right? I think medical equipment as it goes is one of the most important and compelling reasons that we need right to repair, because of the raised stakes, because this is life-saving equipment. And so I don't want to tell you too much, right, about what you're actually experiencing. What I do want to do is talk about the winning movement that has burgeoned around right to repair here in the States, across industries, across the globe even, and talk about kind of where y'all fit in as a part of that movement, and also talk about the progress that we've made on medical right repair, talk about what we still have to overcome and how you can help. But to start, let's kind of zoom out as far as we can here and talk a little bit about what right repair is, right? So at its core, right repair is about really two simple ideas, right? When you own something, you should be able to do what you want with it. And when something breaks, we should fix it, right? So at the end of the day, right repair is about making sure that we can fix our stuff when it breaks. And that problem exists for CT scans. It exists for ventilators. It exists for cell phones, for farmers' tractors, for new these days, even toasters, right? There are now cases in which we can't fix all of our stuff because of essentially software that has been kind of integrated in everything that we use, right? Now, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not saying we need to go back to the old equipment. I'm not exactly following, Thoreau over here. I'm not saying let's get back into the woods and abandon all modernity because, right, the equipment, especially that y'all use, is really come a long way and can help to save lives. But by controlling software, by not giving access to parts, by not giving access to repair materials and documentation, manufacturers are able to really lock down the repair process. So you have to go through their authorized repairs. You've got to pay whatever they want to charge you. You've got to wait as long as you need to wait because maybe they only have so many technicians versus ones on site versus going to third parties. But let's keep talking about just fixing stuff in general. So, I know that many of you deal with repair every day in your lives, in your professional lives, but I think that I wonder, how long it's been since you fixed something in your personal life, right? So I think I know at least that I don't do as much as my dad probably fixed or my grandfather probably fixed, right? I know that my grandfather, being a child of the Depression, right, they held on to things, they made them work, they fixed it, they repurposed it, they refurbished it, they did whatever they needed to do to keep the things going, to keep things running and to fix them themselves versus very much today, that attitude has shifted, right? I think in so many cases, it's true that buying a refurbished device is almost looked down upon, right? There's something about the new, the shiny, and the latest. And every year there's the new Apple iPhone announcement, right? The iPhone 14 came out. How much different is it than the one before it? Who knows? But it's new, it's shiny, it's the latest. You got to get on top of that. And I think that's a real shift that we've seen in our country as far as just what we value in our products, right? So there was a time where, like I said, where we used to fix things, but we've really become much more of a throwaway society where you use something until it breaks, until there's a slight problem, until there's something that's a little bit better, and then we throw it away. Now, this is not right. I'm not here to just say you're not doing good, you're doing a bad job, you're not holding on to your things, right? Because it's not, at the end of the day, our faults. This is very much a part of something that's called planned obsolescence, which has been something that manufacturers have been driving across industries. And planned obsolescence is the basic idea is, right, that they can make a device, a product, such that it is going to break or malfunction or not work the way it's supposed to after a certain amount of time. And because those things are not going to work for too much longer, that means that you have to go and buy a new thing. And that's great for, manufacturers, for sales, right? They are, you got a 2 to 3 to 5 year window, depending on the product, where you're going to have to come get a new thing. And that's good. That's driving sales for them. It's helping increase their profits and their revenues. But in the meantime, right, all of us are kind of the ones that deal with the costs of that. So, I think that is one big part of what has changed. And, as I mentioned before, that this is especially the case because of software. So I know that in y'all's business, you often have to deal with acquiring certain service keys, that you need to have access to special software in order to diagnose a repair, to authorize a repair at the end of the process. And that is common for our cell phones, right? It's the case while Apple 14 actually, our partner iFixit, every new device, right? They break it down, they give it a repair score, and they actually found that the iPhone 14 was the most repairable iPhone in history. They made some serious changes to the design that repair advocates have been critiquing the company for, to make it so that it's more modular, more easily replaceable. But yet they continue to require parts pairing, where you have to take a particular, whether it's a battery or a camera, you have to pair that particular part to your particular phone. So one demonstration that's been done often of this is you can have two brand new iPhones sitting next to each other, swap the screens on the two of them, and both will come up with error messages saying that this part is not recognized, it's an unauthorized part. Even though it's a genuine Apple part, nonetheless, these problems are arising. And so those kind of issues, right, with software is especially the case, but I know in the medical field, you also deal with just getting access to information, to parts, to kits, all those kind of things too. Now, one impact of this, right, especially from the consumer technology angle, is the impact that repair restrictions have on the planet. And so I want to look kind of at the 3 stages of a product's life cycle that repair restrictions influence and the impacts that they have on the planet, right? So starting with extraction, right? So it can be hard to trace exactly where your phone came from, but our devices are full of rare earth metals, often coming from places like Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, Democratic Republic of the Congo, right? Where the mining process leads to all sorts of problems, including soil and water contamination, air pollution, not to mention human rights abuses. And so, even when we do that process domestically, right, it still involves digging a giant crater into the earth, all to get out a finite resource that will run out over time. And there's a lot of exciting investment to try and bring more of rare earth metal productions here in the United States, right, through the CHIPS Act, through things like that. And there's a need for it based on the supply chain disruptions that we are still experiencing after the pandemic. But nonetheless, we need to make sure that we are using these things as long as possible, because there's a finite supply, and the process of getting them out can do some serious damage to our environment. Second stage that really has an impact on the environmental problems that a lack of repair leads to is in the processing. And so using laptops as an example, right? We're making tons and tons of laptops every single year. And the carbon emissions equivalent of creating those 275 million laptops that we make each year is, as you can see, 150.6 billion pounds of carbon dioxide equivalent, or the same as 15 million cars running on the road for a year. That is a lot of emissions. That is not helping. That is with the climate crisis that we face, the extreme weather that we're seeing. And so however we can cut that down, that's going to make a huge impact. And then finally, right, the last step is the disposal. And I think this is the one that, right to repair, you really think about, right? We're literally just throwing all this stuff out. And so aside from the fact that electronic waste is the fastest growing part of our waste stream domestically here in the United States, that there are all these problems, right? It's also incredibly toxic. So it's the fastest growing, however, a small piece of it, but nonetheless, right, as you see, it's 2% of the waste stream and 70% of its toxicity. That is a huge problem. That's getting into, again, our soil, into our water, and a serious kind of impacts there. So that's a little bit about the environmental case of why we need to be able to fix our stuff. When we can repair things, when we can make them last longer, when we can find new uses for them, we reduce the need to go and make more stuff, to mine more, to manufacture more, and to dispose of more. So that's a big piece of it. But it's not just about the environmental case, right? This is very much a consumer protection, consumer rights issue. I think that when you buy something, the basic idea is that it's your thing, and you get to use it how you see fit. And that gets in the way of repair restrictions, get in the way of that. But there are also serious costs, right, that come along with that, because actually it turns out now the average American household is spending $1,500 a year on new electronics. So turns out that if we could extend the use of our things, if we opted for repair instead of replacement for several common household items, American consumers could save $40 billion per year, right? So I think it works out to $330 per household. With inflation going up, with the economy, kind of coming up on some hard times, those kind of dollars matter. They make a huge difference. And so repair is not only good for the planet, but it's good for our pocketbooks. So, I think that right to repair, right, is a big part of this puzzle. But also it's interesting because a survey of consumers in the EU actually found that this is something for the most part that people actually want, right? So you look here, 64% are looking to keep their current digital devices running for at least 5 years. I, for one, have my iPhone 7 here that is coming up on its last legs, but being able to hold on to that for 6 years makes a big difference. And I don't think I've missed out on a whole lot, maybe some better pictures, but I get my friends to take them anyways. And additionally, 8 in 10 Europeans think that manufacturers should be required to make it easier to repair digital devices, to replace their individual parts. So I think, what we're seeing is that consumer sentiment is very much changing on this front. We've done a ton of work to get this issue out there, to tell stories about repair restrictions and the frustrations that they lead to, the problems that they lead to, and try and win, this battle in the court of public opinion. And I think that's, this is not just us, right? Of course, this is advocates across the world, but it seems like that message is coming through. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about consumer right to repair, but I also want to talk a bit about another group that is really affected by this in very difficult situations, in American farmers. So here, this is a couple of pictures of Jared Wilson, who's a friend of mine. He's a farmer from Butler, Missouri, and he's dealt with this firsthand, right? So he tends, I think, about 20,000 acres of, he just told me he finished up his corn harvest. He's now trying to get soy, all of his soy harvested and ready to go. But he's had cases where a problem with the hydraulic system in his fertilizer spreader, which he had loaded up, ready to go to prep the soil for planting, it had a problem, right? There was an error code that came up on the monitor in the cab of his fertilizer spreader. And it threw the tractor into what is called limp mode, right? So in limp mode, what it does is it basically reduces the power output of that piece of equipment to a point where you can limp your piece of equipment off the field to somewhere where it can be repaired, but you can't actually get any work done. He wasn't able to generate enough pressure to actually get the fertilizer out there. So he takes it back to his shed, tries to figure out the problem. Turns out he is unable to make the repair himself. He needs to call up the dealer to make the repair to either come out, or he has to take his equipment in. So what he ended up doing, he had to load his fertilizer sprayer onto a truck, which was full of fertilizer. It was not a cheap endeavor in itself. Drive it out, I think it's 45 minutes to an hour from his farm to his nearest dealership, where his fertilizer spreader sat for 32 days. 32 days before he could actually have his sprayer ready to go, before they were able to make the fix. He was incredibly frustrated throughout the process, right? He told me he loses about $10,000 to $20,000 at each day that he can't get seed in the ground during a planting window. Now, fortunately, it wasn't each of those 32 days that he could have actually been out in the field working, so he didn't lose just incredible amounts of money. But nonetheless, he was incredibly vulnerable. He was in a tight spot, and he couldn't do anything about it himself, despite having the desire to do it, despite having his own mechanics on staff and with the technical know-how, simply because John Deere won't sell him the information, the tools, the software tools that he needs. And so, eventually he was able to get it fixed. But I think his story, and I've heard just dozens and dozens of stories similar to it, show how our producers who are growing the food that goes on our table, who, we rely on to be able to eat, they are kind of being held hostage, as Walter Schweitzer, a farmer from Montana, likes to say. They're very much shackled to dealer repair, and there's nothing they can do about it. So that's a big part of why we're trying to get right to repair done. So that's a little bit about farmers, right? That's kind of the impacts that this can have across different industries. And I should mention, right, that right to repair, again, is a international kind of measure or policy that's being brought up in many cases in connection to the circular economy. So at this point, let's try and use the Q&A function. Maybe folks can just take a minute, think about circular economy, see if you heard about it, that's great. Tell me a little bit about, what does a circular economy look like, and how does repair fit into that? Any thoughts? All right, we'll see if some things come in, feel a little bit like
just a reminder, the way to enter the chat is just to click on that Q&A button, and then you can add in anything that you guys, any thoughts that you have.
Great, thanks, Ariel. Well, what a circular economy is about kind of moving away from the linear economy, as you saw earlier with that kind of diagram, right, of extraction, production, and disposal, and moving to a place where we are actually, reusing things as much as possible. For one, we're building things to last, we're building them to be repairable. So that's kind of this design aspect here. Then, of course, there's the production, the distribution factor, there's the consumption part, but we need to use things, we need to reuse things, we need to repair them, we need to collect them, we need to refurbish them, we need to keep things going as much as possible, recycle them as well. Unfortunately, recycling, I have to say, when it comes to e-waste, is not yet a really great option, often because end-of-use recyclers can't get access to the schematics they need to be able to go and take things apart. Design decisions like using adhesives rather than fasteners make it so that they just have to shred things off, and only something like 30% of electronic waste in the United States gets recycled to start. And so the circular economy is something that I think folks have really grasped onto, particularly in Europe and other places. But we're seeing right to repair pop up all over the place. New Zealand has a new campaign that they've been working on. We've seen a lot of progress in Australia and Canada. Even now in, don't have it in this map, but Brazil, right? This is something that people just get, but we're taking different approaches to it. So I want to talk a little bit about, particularly in the EU, as opposed to what we've been working on here in the United States. So let's start with the EU. This is, I think their righttorepair.eu is their site. So if you're located out there, they're a great group. Highly recommend getting involved with them. But what they have, the way that they have tried to solve this problem is by providing consumers with information, right? So this is an example from the French Repairability Index, which was implemented, I think, about a year ago now, where certain consumer electronic devices are required to include on their packaging this rating, right? That's got from 1 to 10 of how repairable that device is. So real repairable if you're providing access to spare parts for a certain amount of time. If software tools and documentation are available, that means they're going to get a higher score, an 8.5, something up to 10. Versus if that's not the case, if these are disposable, if there's not an easy way to replace the battery that, with lithium ion batteries, those last from 18 to 24 months. If you can't do those kind of things, then you're going to get a bad score. And so this is a way to help consumer activity, consumer preferences, kind of drive the market towards a more repairable future just by simply incentivizing manufacturers to do it. And that's an important piece. But here in the United States, we have taken a different approach in essentially requiring manufacturers to provide certain types of repair materials. So as you see, right, you need to be able to have access to parts. You need to be able to have access to special tools, right? So in some cases that is, you know, iPhone is famous for having the pentalobe screw, which was a brand new screw that they invented. The aftermarket has since created screwdrivers that are able to do that, but nonetheless, you need to be able to provide any tools to prevent that from happening. And then importantly, right, again, going back to the software aspect, is repair information. So that's software repair tools that allow you to diagnose a problem, that allow you to pair parts or authorize repair when it's done. It also means sometimes just the actual information, the physical information. Maybe it's a big, thick repair manual, or it could be electronic, however it comes. By making sure that these tools exist, that these materials are available in the market, we think that we can enable folks who have, again, the kind of desire and the know-how to go and open things up and fix them themselves. They'll be able to do that, but we also can allow the market to take care of it in a different way, in the fact that independent repair shops can open up, right? One example of this that I think is really important, right, is cameras. So I think a lot of folks might remember there was a time when every main street in America had a camera repair shop somewhere there, where there were folks that could help you with that process. But that has very much changed. It's actually at the point now where Canon shut down their final authorized repair location, such that everything now you have to ship in to them to get it done. And so that's bad for a few reasons, right? It impacts resilience. I know during the pandemic, there were all sorts of people who were trying to fix old electronics so that their kids could use them to Zoom into school. But, Apple was shut down. Maybe you're not close to Apple, and trying to ship it and wait, that's not going to work. Whereas independent businesses are there. They can be open. They can continue to provide those kind of services. And it also keeps, those are good local jobs. Repair jobs are good local jobs, right? And they keep kind of the value in your town or city or state, rather than, if you've got to ship it overseas, that value isn't staying in the States. So those again are the two different approaches. But I think both are important. Here in the United States, we're very much focused on making sure that all those materials are available. So I think at this point, we can probably agree that right to repair is common sense, right? I think that's one of my favorite parts of this, of working on this issue, is that people just get it, right? It's something that is popular regardless of where you live, regardless of your maybe political leanings, all those kind of things. People think that they should just fix their stuff. So why haven't we got it done yet? And the simple answer is that we are up against the largest companies in the world, right? These companies have a vested interest in maintaining the repair monopolies that they've been able to establish, right? Whether that's because they want to sell more equipment, whether that's because they have profitable repair revenues that they can continue to generate, as well as some other common things around that's starting to develop about data generation and those kind of things. These companies have a stake in the game. And so we have seen opposition from all of these groups, from even the others that, Amazon, others. We actually did some research and found that it was companies worth a combined $10.7 trillion have lobbied against right to repair. So that's not easy. Those are titans of industry that we're going up against. But the fact of the matter is, our grassroots movement is winning, right? It's this scrappy coalition of engineers, medical device technicians like yourselves. It's farmers like Jared. It's independent repair shops who are fixing cracked screens, environmentalists, tinkerers, hobbyists, end-of-life processors, libertarians. It's just like this huge swath, and kind of, like I said, scrappy coalition of folks who just want to fix their stuff. And that's, coming to the point where it's making a big difference. So for one, we're making powerful allies. This is something that President Biden has included in his priorities. He signed an executive order back in July of 2021 that called on the FTC to engage in rulemaking to crack down on harmful repair restrictions. So that's pretty exciting. And then next to Joe, there is FTC Chairwoman Lena Khan, who I actually had the opportunity to meet with last month. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, which is, for those who might be from out of the country, there are essentially our competition bureau. And what she said to start the meeting is that they are doing everything they can to signal to the market that repair restrictions moving forward will not be tolerated. So, we've got folks in positions of power to make this change who understand what we're trying to do and who are ready to help. But we're not just waiting and relying on them. We're also winning bills in states. So New York became the first state in the country to pass a non-auto right to repair bill back in June, passed through both houses, overwhelming majorities. Like, I think it was something like 3% of votes were against the bill. So strong bipartisan support. Unfortunately, the governor is yet to sign the bill. She has until the end of the year. We are planning to ramp up if there's any funny business, to make sure that she signs that bill, but nonetheless, huge breakthrough. And then shortly after that, the Colorado state legislature passed a right to repair law for powered wheelchairs, because unfortunately, as I'll kind of share a little bit more about in a minute, powered wheelchairs it's pretty much a pure monopoly as far as repair goes. And so they end up having to wait often more than a month to get their chairs fixed, which means that they are immobile, right? That's just the reality of the situation. So it's a bad deal for them, but exciting that bill was actually signed into law and changes on the way. But we're not there yet, right? There are so many categories of devices that we still can't fix, most medical devices included. And there are still states without laws. We don't have national law, federal laws. We're going to continue to push, right, to try and get Congress and DC to act on this, to implement federal laws. But we're also going to keep pushing in the states and try and pass as many bills in the states as we can to force manufacturers to come to the negotiating table and ultimately adopt a right to repair policy if we don't pass a federal law first. So before I move towards wrapping things up here, and want to have a little bit of a discussion about also where we are in the medical space, take y'all's questions and hear some of y'all's experiences. I just want to kind of frame a few things about how we came to the medical right to repair campaign, and some of the things that we found along the way. So, we have been running this campaign for a long time. Back in 2020, when the pandemic came about, when there was this crushing need for ventilators as the best way to treat COVID patients, we started to look into the problem and see if what it looked like, what problems technicians like yourselves and engineers like yourselves were facing. So we actually conducted a survey of hundreds of biomedical repair technicians across the country. And we found that 30% had equipment in their facilities that couldn't be used because of restrictions on spare part and service information. So yes, we needed to make more ventilators, but also at the same time, we needed to keep the ones that we did have up and running all the time. And so that was a huge problem. And then, as you see here, 92% were denied service information for critical equipment. That's a crazy situation. COVID was, and continues to be in some cases, a situation when, regardless of whether you work for the manufacturer, for an independent service organization, for the hospital, or the health delivery organization yourself, everybody should have been coming together to deliver the best possible care to patients. And unfortunately, we didn't see that happen. So while there were some companies who expanded access to training, in part because we collected, I want to say, more than 50,000 petitions calling for for ventilator manufacturers to make this information available. So some, like GE, did open up, and then even Medtronic actually opened up access to some of these trainings, but unfortunately too many didn't, and it was only ventilators. So there's so much work left to do. And then finally, right, talking a little bit about, I was talking earlier about the powered wheelchairs and the impact that it has. 9 out of 10 powered wheelchairs users had a problem with their chair that they need service, and yet almost 7 out of 10 had to wait 4 more weeks for the repair of their equipment. The median wait time was between 6 and 8 weeks, which is just unconscionable. And know that one of the respondents typed in their response that if we couldn't have our car fixed for 4 weeks, there would be riots in the streets, right? But a car compared to a chair that you rely even more for mobility just shows you the stake of the problem. And so, before I'll bring this slide back up, I'm going to stop sharing and just tell you a little bit about what we have going currently with regards to right to repair on the medical front. I think that, for one, medical right to repair can be a even tougher nut to crack than right to repair for tractors or for cell phones and things like that, because medical equipment is a different category. It's life-saving equipment, but it's also, there are raised stakes because of patients can be in much more vulnerable situations than farmers or than just technology users. And so it is often the case that what we see from manufacturers across the board, using what we like to call FUD, right, spearing fear, uncertainty, and doubt about, saying that, well, only our technicians can make these repairs, everyone else isn't doing so unsafely. That can be a harder barrier for us to overcome. Now, of course, right, the research shows from the FDA themselves, their 2018 report on third-party servicing found that third parties are providing high quality, effective, and safe care of, or repair and maintenance of devices. And, they go so far as to say that continued third party service is critical to the functioning of the US healthcare system. So the facts, I think, align with right to repair. They do align with right to repair. We know that this is a way to reduce downtime on equipment and also, deliver better care to folks in the process, because the chances of you walking into a hospital and needing a ventilator or a CT scan and for it being down go down when we can get things fixed faster. But it's tough, and you've got to really dig in. So I think we've had some measured success on our medical right to repair campaign. One of the few of the things that have happened. So for one, back in 2020, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon introduced the Critical Medical Infrastructure Right to Repair Act of 2020. I said that 5 times fast, I dare you. It was would have been a temporary measure for the kind of duration of the COVID emergency declaration. That bill unfortunately didn't move, but nonetheless, it was good to see that we have allies in Congress and Senate that are willing to move on this. And Senator Wyden has continued to be a strong advocate for medical right to repair. In California in 2021, we had the Medical Device Right to Repair Act introduced by Senator Susan Eggman of Stockton, California. That bill, we were able to generate a lot of support, largely because of hospital groups supporting, ISOs supporting. We got even the California Hospital Association to officially endorse the bill. And so we were able to move through both of our assigned policy committees without any opposing votes in the process. Unfortunately, we died in kind of a shady backroom part of the process where no explanation was given. Our thinking is that, unfortunately, the chair of that committee is fairly closely tied with big business interests, and so unfortunately that bill was not able to move. But I think as we look forward, one of the things that I am particularly encouraged by is how the medical device servicing community across ISOs, HDOs are coming together to call for this. So one of the things that recently happened this summer, kind of in June, July, there was a lot of discussion about remanufacturing, and there was legislation introduced that would have been included in a must-pass bill called MDUFA. I won't get too much into the weeds, but that would have expanded the definition of remanufacturing to include normal repair and maintenance activities, such that all groups would essentially have to be now register with the FDA in order to continue to do those repair services. They'd have to undergo additional financial and regulatory burdens that could have put some out of business. we were able to really rally the medical device servicing community around that. We had, I think, 12 of the country's top ISOs. We had hospital networks representing more than 250 hospitals, all speaking against this. And so I think what that shows right now, and also there were 100 biomeds and clinical engineers who signed on to oppose that. We have the groups coming together needed to make a difference on this issue, to stop things, to try and pass right to repair. Now it's going to be a matter of turning that energy and that momentum and into actual legislative change. So continuing to show up, continuing to do things about it, continuing to bring new people into the mix, whether that's more hospitals, more biomed type associations, or groups like RSEA, but also thinking about how can we get doctors in the mix, or nurses, or other valuable partners in the healthcare space to vouch for this policy, to speak about the importance of it. And so I think kind of thinking about, if you're wondering right now, what can you do to help advance right to repair? That's where it really comes down to. So I'm quickly just going to put up my my contact information, my emails here. You can follow me on Twitter. We do a fair bit of just kind of posting about the things that are happening in the right to repair world on there, and would definitely recommend that. And then also, if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to, it's an older sign-on letter from kind of back in the beginning of COVID times. But if you sign up and add your name there, I will add you to our email list and keep you updated on the different things that are happening, the opportunities to get involved. And then, lastly, I'd say just talk to your hospital or to your organization's leadership. Tell them about the importance of right to repair, about the ways that repair restrictions, kind of make your job harder and therefore get in the way of delivering the best care possible to your patients. So with that, I'm gonna stop blabbering, at least for a minute. And here, Ariel, let me make you the host of this again.
Oh, I can do it. There we go. Cool. Well, thank you very, very much, Kevin. We actually had a comment from Corey Hatcher during the call. So I'll tell everybody, if you have any questions on what Kevin presented on today, please enter them into the chat right now and we'll run through those. So Corey just said, the most frustrating aspect of all of this is that when you buy something, the manufacturer hides behind proprietary info and still controls access to simple information. What's the best avenue to report these types of instances to PIRG? So I know you shared that, but I'm going to also share something. Let me share my screen. I think you all can see this. Uh-oh, I can't get any of this to move. So the RSEA website, sorry, there's a lot of stuff up here. The RSEA website has a new tab at the top called Advocacy. If you go to linacing.org, which is our RSEA website, and click on that Advocacy tab, we actually have logged a right to repair event intake form. So you click on this yellow button here, and you can really fast and easily fill out instances where there is anti-competitive practices, where there is an OEM limiting access to simple information, etc. So anytime anything happens and you would like to log it, whether you think it's relevant or not, please go to the website and log it here. And again, it's a very quick and easy survey. It's literally this long. Every comment that you submit will be posted anonymously, so don't worry about that. The other important thing is, no event too big or too small, it should be omitted. And so anytime something happens that you're like, man, this doesn't seem right, log it here and log it every single time. So if you have multiple machines and they've, an OEM has restricted access here or there, please log it every single time, because what we're trying to establish is patterns and then the frequency, so we can kind of aggregate the, you know, magnitude of the actions from the OEMs.
And just to echo that, I mean, for one, Corey, your instinct is exactly right. Logging those, reporting those, getting that information is out to advocates like RSEA, like PIRG, is so important, because we can use that in a number of different ways. So for one, when we go to competition authorities like FTC, when we go to FDA, having specific discrete events that we can present and say, this is exactly what happened, this is the type of machine, this is the way in which repair was restricted. That is so incredibly important. But I think the other thing too is, you know, and that's an anonymous form, but if you have a story of that's compelling because there was a piece of equipment that was shut down, that, you know, that as a result patients were turned away or had to wait longer, those can be really powerful for speaking to the media and sharing with the media. That's been a common kind of thread of the kind of story that we've seen media take up on this issue. And so, you know, get in touch with me, let me know. You don't necessarily have to put your name on the record. We can have you speaking on background, but we have relationships with a lot of reporters who care about this issue, want to, of course, share the facts, but are ready to do so. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. You know, our conversations, I'm never going to say your name or your organization unless you tell me that's okay. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
One other thing I'm going to just mention as an anecdote for those of you who were not able to join us at the annual meeting in July, I believe it was, just so happened that, you know, the RSEA annual meeting was held in conjunction with AAPM's annual meeting, and it was in Washington, D.C. this year. So Kevin and his team helped organize a series of meetings with US representatives. And we split into groups and we kind of divvied up going and meeting with these various representatives and just speaking to them about the right to repair and how it pertains to us in the medical industry. And it was very interesting, not only to see the process, but also to see that, you know, a lot of the representatives were actually not familiar with it and the impact it made. And once we had an opportunity to discuss, you know, our side of the story and our concerns, it seemed to me, at least, there was a considerable amount of interest and buy-in from the staff for these US representatives to pay attention and potentially support bills that may come in the future around the medical right to repair. So I feel that we've got great momentum. I think logging these events is the next really big step into quantifying, you know, the types of restrictions that we're seeing and the types of pain that we all are experiencing from the OEMs with restriction to parts and information and just access to the machines.
And Corey, to answer your follow-up question, we don't have a formalized reporting kind of database, but please take down my email and just send me a note when things happen. Would be happy to, you know, hear about those and then also see how we might be able to use those in the advocacy efforts moving forward.
We have another question from Marcus Jones. Hi, Marcus. So what kind of controls do you see medical device manufacturers introducing to ensure that service information and parts are only made available to qualified personnel, not necessarily their own staff or authorized agents? There's obviously safety and liability implications for both repair personnel and patients alike if unqualified personnel attempts repairs to medical devices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, Marcus, you're absolutely right that we want to make sure that people who are doing this repair work are qualified to do so, right? That they've got the know-how, the training, and that they're not just Joe off the street who decided to start up his own CT scan repair business. But I think that for one, right, there are already a lot of reporting requirements that exist, whether it's through, you know, the Joint Commission, through Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, right, and other regulatory and professional standards bodies that are ensuring that the technicians who are doing this work, you know, are undergoing continuous education, that they are keeping record of the repairs and maintenance activities that they're doing and those kind of things. So I think in many ways, we feel that additional kind of measures don't appear to be necessary, especially given the FDA's 2018 report and its findings there. What I will say, right, and one thing that we have considered in legislation in the past, as far as language of making sure that, again, it is these folks and the right people who are getting their hands on the information, is by making it kind of restricting who the manufacturer has to provide this information to hospitals and their agents, right? So if they hire an ISO, then that ISO can get access to all the software, all the repair materials, et cetera. So that kind of being in there. But I think, again, a hospital isn't just going to hire Joe off the street. I mean, there are some fly-by-night medical facilities, and that is a problem in its own right. But I think by and large, I think that what the research has shown is that folks are doing a good job of this, that the kind of regulatory regime that we have in place is preventing a bunch of heinous acts. So, we hope that will continue to be the case. But again, like I said at the start, one of our things is advocating for the public interest, advocating for public health. So patient safety is a huge part of that. And we want to make sure that continues to be a priority, after right to repair eventually becomes law.
And Corey also adds on to that. So I have some news from the RSEA as well around this question, but Corey's follow-up on that is, variant training certificates specifically state that the training is attendance, not that you are actually qualified after attending it. That is one way they could ultimately limit that you are actually qualified. There could be a way to build a real certification training. So one of the three main objectives this year for the RSEA is to begin work on a foundational certification for our profession. Next Wednesday, the 12th, DJ Conrad from RSA is actually giving a speaker series session about what inroads have been made, what activities the RSEA is taking to actually work with different governmental entities to actually begin the framework for a formal certification for linear accelerator engineers. So if you haven't already signed up for the speaker series that's happening next Wednesday, the 12th, please do so, because there's actually some very exciting progress around that front as well. Any other questions before we wrap up here? So everybody, typically these recordings, as I mentioned in the beginning, are available to full members through the website once you log in with your membership credentials. For a short period of time, I think we will make this live for everyone on the RSEA's new YouTube channel. So we will post that. Watch our LinkedIn page. It's a new LinkedIn page. If you search RSEA, it should come right up for announcements and links to that in the next week or two. But otherwise, I just really want to thank Kevin. He has helped our association connect at such high levels on the right to repair and has really guided the RSEA through what it means to become involved in the discussions around the right to repair. And the progress we're making is incredible. The main thing we need from our membership base is to log those instances on the survey as often as they happen. Let's get a big body of proof around some of the practices that are taking place, and we will be poised for the next steps. So thanks, Kevin, so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Ariel. Thank you, RSEA. Y'all have been just a key partner, over the past year. But I'm really looking forward to working together more to get right to repair done, to get this so that you can fix your stuff. Won't be a problem, and we can worry about the next thing.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Our next speaker series again is bright and early on Thursday morning. We'll have recordings for everything, but have a great week, and thanks again, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Bye, everybody.